Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Chang, and we're bringing this to you on behalf of Kuaina Ulu Aomo and our many networks engaged in Aloha and Malama Aina across the state. Duke, thank you for joining us today. We've been holding talk story sessions with candidates during the primary, and now going into the general. And we're just grateful that you allowed some time to speak with us. Before we begin, we'll share a short video on Kua's work, and then what I'll do is I'll get right into questions, Duke, and then we'll just flow from there.
Okay.
Kuaina are the grassroots rural people of Hawaii. Ulu is to grow. Awamo is the carrying stick, used to shoulder the weight of many. Kuaina Ulu Awamo means grassroots growing through shared responsibility. Kua is a backbone organization that supports networks of communities across Hawaii. They are fishers, farmers, fish pond kiaʻi, and limu gatherers. Together, these practitioners, educators, researchers, and community stewards are working toward a shared vision in Aina Momona, rich, abundant ecological systems that support community well-being. These experts of land and sea hold wisdom and solutions for some of Hawaii's most difficult social and environmental problems. Your support helps us respond to the needs of our communities. It helps build a better and more just future for generations to come.
Thank you, Nigel. So, Duke, I'm going to read a statement, and then I'll ask you our first question. The Hawaii State Constitution makes clear that our natural and cultural resources, including our nearshore marine resources, are subject to the public trust, and therefore must be managed and protected for the benefit of present and future generations. The Hawaii Constitution further requires the state and its agencies to protect and enforce Native Hawaiian rights, including traditional and customary practices associated with and dependent upon carefully managed and abundant nearshore resources. As the complexity of environmental issues increase, the need for collaboration between and amongst departments like DLNR and its divisions like DAR, DOBOR, DOCARE, and DOPA, and Hawaii citizens become increasingly critical to our collective effectiveness in caring for Hawaii. One significant position in navigating this will be the position of DLNR chair. And one question we have of you is whether you have anyone in mind for this position.
I don't. Let me first of all just start off by saying thank you for the opportunity. I look at this as something more educational for me than anything else. I didn't know about your organization until you reached out and asked if I could, talk story with you guys. And so here I am, and so really in that mode. But my answer to your question is no, I don't have anybody in mind right now. I understand what I need to do when elected governor. Probably the top priority once you're elected is to get that transition team selected, because you only have a short month. You get sworn in December. You got to put that team together within that month of December, because you want them in front of the Senate for confirmation immediately. What you don't want is you don't want interim directors. You don't want to waddle and waste the legislative session before you know it, it's year 2 and you're in a second legislative session. The second part of when you become a governor is looking at that budget and seeing what's in that budget. Now, I have no idea what this current administration has been doing. I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping abreast of every little detail that they've been doing in the last 8 years. I just know generally what's been going on. I know for a fact, based on my experience as a lieutenant governor, that DLNR is one of those agencies or departments and agencies and divisions that I believe is underfunded. I don't believe they have enough resources to do a lot of things. And so I do know that. But right now, I have nobody in mind. What I would like to do in selecting a chair is to open it up to you, the organizations out there, as best as I can to put together a group, what I would call a screening committee, and have people submit their names, an application process to become chair. And of course, have a group of 6, 7, 8 people. Obviously, it have to be an odd number because you're going to have to select, some nominees, and then do it through that process. And I would have to rely on your expertise, your time, your knowledge, and of course your interaction with the DLNR to come up with the best chair. I do know this though, and I remember this very vividly. I believe that when Governor Ige was in his second term, I think it was his second term, he had problems with the selection of the DLNR chair. And if I'm not mistaken, it took them over a year to select that DLNR chair. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But in any event, I want it to be quick. I want it to be so I can get them in front of the Senate within, like I said, within that first month of the session, and get it confirmed.
Thank you, Duke. And I want to follow up also. An issue we increasingly feel inhibits collaboration because we think collaboration is the future for taking care of Hawaii, is the current structure of DLNR. Could you share any thoughts on the organizational structure of DLNR, which you think would improve the management of our environment?
Well, I think, the structure itself, I'm not, how can I put it? I don't have any real strong position in regards to making any changes to DLNR. Put it that way. I'm not steadfast in its current structure. I know there needs to be changes, as I mentioned earlier. I know for a fact that we don't have enough enforcement officers. In fact, I just spoke to the current recruit class for DoCare, and I think they lumped them all together. There were like about almost 50 of them. And I said, I do know that one of the problems that you're going to be facing, as law enforcement officer. When I say lumped, I think they had aquatics as well as forestry. I believe it's, I don't know exactly how they identify the different resource officers. But I said, the problem that I've seen in the past is that when you confront someone in the community in regards to a potential violation, whether it's on the trails, whether it's in the ocean, is that person that you're confronting about 80% of the time, 90% of the time is a local farmer or a local hunter, a local fisherman, and they have probably just as much knowledge and experience with their habitat that you have. So when you approach them and you confront them, make sure that you do it in a very respectful way and not in an authoritative way right up from the start. Now, whether or not that needs to be restructured in regards to how we have law enforcement, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not wed to the current structure. In fact, I'll just be honest, I don't know the entire structure of DLNR. I just know that they have these different agencies and divisions within them, and that the biggest complaint that I've always heard about DLNR is, one, the maintenance of our trails and of the other resources that that comes under their jurisdiction, and of course enforcement. Big complaint about enforcement. And so I'm open to structure changes. I know for the enforcement side, at one point they were talking about having consolidation with transportation, with harbors, with the sheriffs, etc., cross-training the law enforcement officers so that they could work, all these different departments and agencies, etc. I don't think that's a good idea, but I know they had that at one point in time. But I'm open to even something like that if they want to continue any discussion along those lines.
Thanks, Lou. I'll pass the next question on to Laʻa Poepoe of Molokai. Go ahead, Laʻa.
Sorry, I got it written out. Bear with me. This looks kind of long. Okay, I'll do my best. Something that is important to know is when we take something out of nature, whether it's fish, deer, or plants, etc., then we are creating a void with a missing spot there. Before we take anything, we should understand how that void is going to be refilled. The answers are the same as they were in the past, and are the same that we as caretakers of our places uphold today, and we continue the legacy. The state has laws in place to protect some of our resources, but they aren't always the most effective in maintaining a balance, as many communities such as Moʻomomi are working to collaborate with the state on creating community-based subsistence fishing areas that would further protect our resources using place-based hands-on knowledge from the people who actively know and care for that place. And they do them every day. In that process, we find that those who oppose these proposed rules that would help to ensure balance and abundance for future generations, they often claim rights and oppose any limitations that would apply to themselves. While we do as Kanaka have rights, the Article 12, Section 7, so we also have a responsibility, and those rights do not mean that we can take whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. So how will you as governor ensure that what is pono for resource is considered, despite any vocal oppositions by those who want to take without limits? And I hope it came across.
No, in fact, as you were reading it, I said the answer lies in the question, or your statement and your comments regarding, in other words, the lead up to the question. And I think it also lies in the introduction that was made in regards to the Constitution and the fact that it's a public trust. And as such, we are the trustees of our environment, and we have to uphold it as such. And when you're a trustee, that means you have the responsibility, to act accordingly. And that means that you have that fiduciary duty to make sure that everything is pono and everything is done right. And a big part of, I think, what the problem is at DLNR, one of the big problems you have is again, not so much, maybe collaboration is a part of it, but I think when you have limited resources, and you have a lot of organizations out there, and you can't coordinate it, I think that puts a strain on the administration, and that has to be done better. And of course, listening, it all starts with listening. And this is why I say the answer is out there, because, and remember when I said to the dog care officers that you have to, when you approach somebody out there, you got to understand that they are just as knowledgeable. They are basically just as good a steward as you are. In fact, what I believe is that enforcement of a lot of the rules that we have come from the public itself when it comes to, our natural resources. And the public is the one that's out there, because we don't even have enough resource officers to go out there and to patrol and to enforce and to be vigilant in regards to what can and cannot be done. So as governor, my role is first and foremost, as asked by that first question, who is going to be in charge, who are going to be appointed to lead that division. That's very important that we get the right people in there. And secondly, that we have big ears. We have 2 ears and one mouth. We listen more than we talk. And third, that we get complete input before any decision is made. And I firmly believe that, you're not going to please everybody. So it's not about pandering or anything of that nature. All it is that you have to get input. You have to learn how to listen, and you have to segregate what's, what the pros and the cons are, and then ultimately what's best for the community. But it all starts with listening, and it all starts with the input. So I'm hopeful that your various organizations out there will give input and not wait to the end when when something is decided, and then at that point in time, interject and say, well, how come this didn't happen? So I guess notice is a big part also to let people know, what's going on. Community like Molokai is very small, so that shouldn't be a problem. And so when things come up, I hope we can get things done quickly. When I say things come up, when issues are raised, that it can be solved quickly. That's part of the problem when it just basically is not addressed immediately and timely. So I hope all of those things can be done so that we can address these issues that you're talking about, and making sure that we are doing what's right for the community, what's being done for just the industry at large, and of course the people who use all of our resources.
Thanks, Duke. Pass the next question on to Mike Nakachi.
Thanks, Kevin. Hey, aloha, Duke. My name's Mike Nakachi. I'm calling you from Mokuokeawe here in Waikoloa. Basically, our community here has been working hard to protect the Aina. In the West Hawaii Regional Fisheries Management Area, which is basically from Upolu Point to the north in Kohala, all the way down to Kalai, South Point. That's 155 miles of leeward coastline. Reefs are very prominent in this entire area. Special wahipana, pu'uhonuas to many different species here. But what we're noticing is, coastal development has had a tremendous impact on our reefs and on our Aina. And I'm going to ask the tough question, it's just, would you support development moratoriums in communities like ours where no infrastructure or the sensitivity to rural areas is not considered? People with mo'okuauhau to that area are not considered. So these are just a lot of things that we're just dealing in a rural neighborhood that has had an explosion of development, where malihini are moving here in droves, affecting it. So would you support any type of moratoriums in West Hawaii?
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
Is your voice being heard? Have you made your voice heard, when these developers or these developments are being planned and, of course, being applied for the permitting, etc.?
Well, I'll give you an example. Let's just look at Pūpūkea, Duke. That was naturally land from Parker Ranch. On the Mauka side, you would buy a lot back in the 60s for $500, yeah? Makai side was $600. Now there's several $1 million, right? You flush the toilet, brother Duke, right? 15 minutes later, you can do a dye trace, and that sewage is out on our reefs. Kind of no infrastructure was done there. I know that that's up to that Pūpūkea community, but we have county, state, everyone pointing the fingers at one another. So before any more developments are done, we need to make sure that all of those necessary infrastructures are in place to, not be harmful for, whether it's Mauka or Makai, because it's all interconnected, yeah, Duke. So, that's just one example of many that we have. Another one is Opihihale to the south, okay, which is a rural community. You all of a sudden want high-end, multi-million-dollar homes going in our communities down there. And how is that possible? On Lava Rock, where right across the street is a farmer who can only afford $5,000 maybe of taxes, and his assessed values are going to go through the roof,
right?
Affect his whole TMK of that area.
Right.
So these are just sensitive questions that many maka'ainana just would love leadership to hear their voice.
So let me go back to that question though. So you're basically saying your voice is not being heard?
No, our voice is being heard, but this is more so to you as the poll. Being the man, being the gov, this is something that we just need the gov or someone to be very bold, and that's just me seeing. That's what we would love, that vision of true leader taking care of our Aiona, taking care of our people, taking care of communities that were that community. It wasn't a luxury neighborhood, was never a luxury neighborhood. So how, you know what I mean, Duke? How do you keep those areas sensitive for the people that are vahipana, that aren't for everyone in the world, you know?
So, this might be related to what I've been talking about recently in regards to our housing problem that we have, and in particular, affordable housing, right? And if you didn't see it, we had a press conference about a week ago. And my whole premise is that there is a solution for us in Hawaii in regards to being able to afford a home. And a big part of it, the problem is the outside influences that we're having. I'm being nice by saying outside influences. I think you know what I mean. Coming into Hawaii and raising the prices as well as the availability of homes. That's the problem. So what we've done is we've taken away the local market, the local real estate market. And as such, we're unable to afford because it's not being tied in to the local income of our local market. And so what you're talking about kind of goes in line with what I'm saying in regards to affordable housing. So would I be bold enough to step up and say, let's put a halt on development in a particular area? I have no problems in doing that. I mean, I have no problems in being honest and being transparent and being fair for the people of Hawaii. It's not even an issue, it's how we do it that needs to be coordinated, right? So as part of my housing solution, I want to appoint what I'm calling a chief executive officer, more like somebody who's going to be in my cabinet to coordinate all of these things that are happening in regards to development with housing, etc. This seems like a problem that would be on that radar and would come to my attention, obviously. And as such, we would deal with it accordingly. We want to take what's called the whole of government approach, which means that we deal directly with all of the governments that we have, the federal, the state, and the county. And so obviously, because some of this is going to be county issues, right, in regards to permitting, etc. I had mentioned, and I've been in this position for a while in regards to our state land use commission. I always felt that the state land use commission was, and it's true, and they will even admit this, that at times they are an impediment, they're a barrier to development of housing in the state of Hawaii. And I always felt that it was a duplication because basically what the State Land Use Commission does is it just basically looks at those four things that we have, right? Conservation, agriculture, urban, etc. And they try to keep it in that, in that realm. And then if people want exemptions, they go to the State Land Use Commission and they make sure that, things are being done accordingly to those land designations. And I felt that the counties would be good enough to do that. They have, right? The counties have their own zoning commissions, etc., and they can do it. So I feel, well, it's a local problem. It's a local rule. Why not let the local, governmental structures do it? They should be able to do it. I mean, they're in touch with their people. Why have the state agency do it? But you raise a problem that gives it that extra layer. You got these outside influences coming in and developing, right? As we well know, developing hotels and these high-end community homes. And this is maybe a better function for the State Land Use Commission in keeping to that vision and making sure that this doesn't happen. And it keeps our homes affordable for our local communities. So in answer to your question, your direct question, absolutely, I have no problem in being bold and saying, we're gonna have a moratorium. I have no problem with that. It's just that, when we do it and how we do it. And this is that's why I asked you that question. Is your voice being heard? Because I know you're going to be a little hesitant on that, but I know exactly how it goes. Yeah, you get the floor, you get to say what you want. They say they're listening, and then boom, right? It just goes out the door. That's not listening. That's being able to be heard, but to me, that's not listening. Not saying that what you say has to be done, but I think there would be further discussion in regards to that. And on top of that, you would actually see some action that because you're right about that stretch out there. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I know some people are fishermen out there, and they told me the same thing. And it's not just in that stretch. Also, there's other parts in our state where that is happening. So I'm very sensitive to that. I want to make sure that we do it the right way. We're in a very critical state, right, in regards to our environment and our development and where we go. I don't want to see us to be, somebody told me once that on Oahu, the critical mass for Oahu is 2 million people. I said, wow, 2 million people. He says, yeah, when they say critical mass, they say that's when we will flourish as a state, economically, et cetera, et cetera. I said, well, where do we put everybody? We've got 1 million people or close to 1 million people in Oahu. We don't have the supply for housing, et cetera. Where do we put them? And so the answer was, you go up. And this is what rail is all about. Rail is to have these transit-oriented developments to stations, and then you build around it, and you increase the population that way by going up. The small step-ups that we have in some of these communities, these old communities like Kalihi and in Kaimuki and Moʻomomi, you graze them and you go up. And so I said, wow, I think we're kind of odds with that. I just don't see that as something that I can. First of all, I can't comprehend it. I have a hard time comprehending how we add another 1 million people. But the point I'm trying to make is that I don't see how we keep what we are as a state, our environment, our culture, etc. How do we keep that and build this kind of, or I should say, let that kind of population just overwhelm us, albeit on one island now? Can you see what's going to happen on the neighbor islands if something like that begins and happens on Oahu? So I know what the potential of the Kona area could be, right? It could be that ultra retirement area for people who have that kind of money. I understand that, and so I can see what the economic development can be, and how it can prosper that area. But at the same time, I know exactly what it can do to our environment and our culture out there, and that's a fine balance, right? That's a very fine balance, and I would hope that the people who have that kind of money and that kind of assets would understand that. And that's why I would say I have no problem in being bold and telling, hey, you gotta hold on, baby, a little bit. You gotta wait a little while. Okay. Those people with that kind of money, they don't need something like this. They can wait. It's us, right? In our future, our grandchildren, etc., that need to have this sense of security and hope that Hawaii will be Hawaii 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Thank you, Duke. Lolo Mike, we'll pass the next question on to Uʻilani.
Great segue for me. Aloha, Duke.
Hi, aloha.
Mahalo for being here this afternoon. So that was just talking about my community, actually. The Kona Stretch area, Opihale, that's where my moʻokuauhau is. And so, yeah, it's really real for me. And so I'm over here churning, and I want to ask more questions about it. And I will say that, yes, our voices are being heard, but it's such an effort that every time this pops up, a development, possibility happening, the communities have to rise up and challenge that. Mm-hmm. And when it moves along the coast, all along West Hawaii, the same behavior happens. And we have to rise up, drop everything, and move into action to fight these issues. And so what we're bringing to your attention is wanting you to meet us by coming from the top down. We're doing it from the roots down. We're announcing what our moʻokuauhau is. We're announcing that we're there and that we're protecting the Aiona, but we need your help. you get in office, I'm going to quote you on it. I'm going to remember this recording and I'm going to play it back to you, especially for our other keiki that's coming right behind us. And they're following in our footsteps already. And they're middle-aged, they're middle school and high schoolers that right now in our work to do CBSFA, they sat along of us, you know, besides us adults, and they provided testimony. They're only in middle school and high school, and they provided testimony to BLNR, directly to BLNR. They announced who they were, they announced what their function is for being generational stewards. And so with that, I'm Uʻilani Naipo. I'm a lineal descendant out of Miloliʻi, Kapalilua, South Kona. The question I have for you speaks to a personal experience from my community of Miloliʻi. On August 2nd, Governor Ige came to Miloliʻi to promulgate rules for the Miloliʻi community-based subsistence fishing area. Since 1994, language and authority was given to DLNR to create such fishing protective designation areas. And until August 2nd, when our rules were promulgated, there was only one. So for nearly 3 decades now, communities like mine, like Moʻomomi, like Kipahulu, like Hāʻena, have worked with government agencies to come up with collaborative solutions to natural resource management that are consistent with Native Hawaiian practices. Our customary and traditional subsistence practices are recognized in our Constitution. We have the ike that is critical for protecting our and caring for our lands and waters. Progress should not take 30 years. As governor, how will your office support and expedite ongoing efforts for community-based natural resource management? How will you remove barriers for such progress? And how will your office encourage other communities to pursue place-based collaborative approaches to natural resource management?
You know, I like what you said in regards to educating me. I love that. And so that's my response. You educate me. You tell me, what do you think would be the best way? Because you said 1994, was it 1994? Until this year?
Yep.
What's the reason? I don't know what the reason was. I mean, obviously we were in office too at that point in time, and you know, nothing was done. What was the barrier? What was the hang up?
It's a long, laborious project, and it takes communities like ours. It costs so much, not just in time, but we're having to review a lot of traditional practices, very personal mo'okuauhau practices as well. And then working with a framework that doesn't easily facilitate and codify traditional practices. Traditional practices, modern Western framework of how to manage our resources. And so it is way too long. So 2005 is when Miloliʻi got its CBSFA designation, but it took from there till now to develop the rules, do outreach, do scoping. This is all on, you know, free time of the community. And in a traditional Hawaiian fishing village, what's the chances you're going to find a project manager or an accountant or someone that has tenacity to sit across the DLNR and work through this process and figure out what Chapter 91 is all about? And then if you take your traditional practices, which this was not what my kupuna did, you don't invite somebody to come in from another island way across the state and say, oh, well, come and tell me what I'm doing wrong with my fishing practices, for which, you know, my kupuna did for generations and generations. That's why we have our practices. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but mostly it's so costly for everyone involved, to include even DAR, for which, you know, has not very set processes. They have a guiding principles for which they try to maneuver through this, but working with communities is a challenge because our challenges are not the same as Hāʻena. It's not the same as Kipahulu. Some of those have to do with tourism. Ours has to do with other fishers coming in, aquarium fishing and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm all ears. I mean, I hear you what you're saying, and it is something that's not acceptable. I just can tell you that from my perspective. It's not acceptable that you wait that long and the system is such that it's not flexible enough to make it happen, when it should be happening, right? And I understand what DLNR is saying in regards to Western management, etc. I'm sure they have some guidelines that they have to follow also. But I mean, we are who we are. We're not California. We're not any other place in the United States. We are Hawaii, and you talk about the history, etc. And I know all of these fishing villages have their own unique history, their own culture, their own practice, their own grounds, right? I mean, I'm not a fisherman, so but I know. I mean, I eat them. I eat the fish though. But anyway, I'm not a fisherman. But all I can say is that I'm gonna learn from you. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I got the answer, and this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna make it right. But obviously, you point out something that's disturbing, and I just don't think that that's something that I would like to have coming back to me as governor of the state of Hawaii and saying, this is what's been going on in Miloliʻi, and so it's having the right people in place, obviously. I guess I got, now that I'm listening to some of the things you're saying, we need somebody who has that kind of expertise in systems analysis and how do we make systems better? How do we basically make, take away some of maybe the bureaucracy we have at DLNR and just making it more efficient. So we will have personnel accordingly. But it all starts at the top, like you said. And I don't want to be, I don't want to govern it that way. I don't want to govern from the top down. I don't think that's how it should be. It should always be from, we're a democracy. We're for the people and by the people and of the people. And it's by you and your community that we become who we are and we become better at what we do. So Uʻilani, all I can say is yes, please. I know you're not going to run away from this, and good, you're not going to run away from this. But if we have this opportunity, when I'm elected, let's not wait. Let's do this from day one. And I'm hoping that you guys will all have an opportunity and the input into who the leadership will be at DLNR, so we can make things good, and not only now but into the future. I would like to develop. I said this the other night. I said, I'm running because I feel like I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have right now the skills to be the governor that we need right now for these times and where we've been and where we are right now. And I'm running because of that. But I also know that I have a lot of people around me, as well as myself, who have ideas and have what we call solutions to a lot of the long-standing problems that we have had in this state. One of them being housing. And so what I said was, let's just say I don't get elected. I'm fine with the Democrats taking the ideas that we have, the solutions that we have, and implementing it, because it's for the people of Hawaii. It's not about red, it's not about blue, it's not about Democrats and Republicans, it's about the people. And so I said, but if we get elected and we get to implement all these solutions and problems that we have, and it's that good, it's going to be that difficult for anybody else coming in the next administration to change it. And that's just like what we're talking about right now. Let's get the foundation right. Let's structure DLNR and all of the agencies and the divisions that it has. Let's do it correctly. Let's do it right. And when we do it right, that's going to be very difficult to change it in any way. And if it does, and if they do, we got organizations out there like you who've already have that seat at the table, and the structure is there for you to not resist, but to basically, make sure that if there are going to be any changes being made, that it's for the benefit of the department and the people, and it's the right way to do it. Not just because now I'm the chair and this is the way we're going to do it. I'm the governor and this is the way we're going to do it. We're Democrats and this is the way we're going to do it. We're Republicans and this is the way we're going to do it. It's always got to be for the benefit of the people. So, I hope that answers your question. It's not an easy one. None of these questions are easy to come up and say, I got the answer. And I think if anybody can say that, they're not being honest. They're not being honest.
Thank you so much for that. And I'll pass it off to Jenny in Pūpūkea.
Mahalo, Uʻi. Aloha Duke, how are you?
Hi, aloha, Jenny.
Mahalo for being here. Yeah, Uʻi, she's not going anywhere. She's a fighter, that one. So my name is Jenny Yagodich, and I grew up and still live out here in Pūpūkea on the North Shore of Oahu, where I actively work in ocean conservation, education, and stewardship. And we are definitely one of those places that is seeing pretty much every visitor that comes to Oahu is coming out here. One of the places that, you know, we use our traditional names, but you might have heard of Shark's Cove. And so that's in this ahupua of Pūpūkea. And so that's one of the spots that I'm talking about specifically. In an effort to maintain continuity, I'm going to just read the question the way it's asked, but you touched on this. And so I think it's a really good question to sort of further elaborate on. So here goes. DLNR's Division of Aquatic Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, and Division of Boating and Recreation create the rules that help protect our natural resources. The Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement, DOCARE, you know, is tasked with enforcing those rules. However, DOCARE is underfunded, understaffed, and not fully equipped to uphold its natural resource enforcement responsibilities. Many of us who work in resource management, especially management of our marine resources across Hawaii, see firsthand how limited DOCARE response, presence, and enforcement due to too little funding and too few positions results in a lack of trust, a lack in morale, and most importantly, a decrease in the health and abundance of our natural resources. So, how will you, as governor, ensure that DOCARE has the adequate funding it needs so that they can effectively and proactively respond to and enforce the rules and regulations in place to protect our natural resources?
And I did touch on that. Thank you for that question, Jenny. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And so like Mike asked, would you be bold enough to increase the budget for DOCARE and get them the resources that they need, especially, you know, enforcement officers? Absolutely. I've said that many times. And of course, paying them, you know, what they deserve to get paid. So we can recruit and we can retain these officers. And if it's something where we need to, like I said, you know, they talked about consolidating, right, the various law enforcement personnel that we have at you know, on harbors and sheriffs, etc. And like I said, I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it, but if that is something, like I said, I'm open to it. If that'll help, and that might be an immediate, I guess you could say, solution to having more enforcement out there, then by all means, let's do it. But I understand the training, and that's why they talk, you know, enforcing marine, you know, violations are a lot different from, you know, enforcing things in forestry. I mean, it is different. But as DOCARE officers, they have to know every aspect of it, right? And so I'm all for it. And so the issue is not lost on me. I understand the issue, and I'm prepared to do it. DLNR is, if you look at the pie, right, in regards to the I guess the distribution of funds to the various departments, they get a very small piece of the pie when it comes to funding. And of course, when we talk about Hawaii, like you said, the trails, the beaches, etc. I'm one of the biggest critics in that in regards to all of that. I always say, why do we have the worst, you know, facilities at our beaches, at our parks? You know, Pūpūkea, that whole area right there is just a mess as far as I'm concerned. It's a mess. I travel there a lot. I have relatives live in Pūpūkea. I live in Wahiawa. We go, I mean, you know, I'm not a fisherman, like I said, but I am a boater and I do surf, etc. It's just terrible. I mean, but you know, it's something that we let happen. Sadly, we let it happen. So we have to be much better in what we're doing. And if it's, you know, I'm going to do the best to find the resources that we need, which is money. And that means we got to shift things around, because I'm not into raising taxes or increasing fees, although that's another issue. I don't know if that's part of the question. Some of the questions in regards to fees for using our parks and our trails, etc. I am very favorable to that in regards to our tourists. Now with residents, that's another thing. I don't know. We have to talk about that. But I am somebody who would look favorably upon, you know, imposing fees, as long as the fees are directed and are used for the maintenance and the upgrades and everything that we need for our parks, our beaches, and our trails, etc. It can't be going into a general fund. It's one of the biggest issues we have with harbors, right? The fees that are being used at harbors are not being used for the harbors. I've heard that from when I was in office, could never get that right. I don't know why. But anyway, maybe I'm digressing, but anyway, that's my response to you, Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to answer that question. And Kev, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Jenny. I think our last formal question is coming out from North Kauai, Aiona, and Billy Kinney. Thank you, Billy, for joining us.
Of course. Hello, Mr. Aiona.
Well,
You know, it's funny thing you bring that up about fees, because that's exactly what we're doing in Hāʻena. We've created community-based economic development, and so we're actually managing the park reservation system for Hāʻena State Park. We manage the parking and as well as the shuttle system. So majority of those fees, all but a small portion of those fees go to the Hāʻena community and the mission of our hui Maka'ainana Umakana, which I'm a director of. So anyways, introducing myself, I'm Billy Kinney. I'm from the island of Kauai, recent graduate of UH Manoa Urban Regional Planning. Again, and I'm also a director of Hui Maka'ainana Umakana. And so in Hāʻena, as a nonprofit dedicated to what was left to us by our kupuna, particularly this kuleana to restore, to care for, to protect the sort of natural cultural resources in Hāʻena. We've seen the damage that tourism does to our communities, our natural resources, and our infrastructure, as you were talking about. Some of these places are in bad shape. In Hāʻena, our hui has grown into like really the fullest extent of that kuleana through co-management, right, of our ancestral lands, our fisheries, which we manage through CBSFA. Again, we've assumed management of the reservation, the parking, and the shuttle systems. And so with partner organizations, we offer Hawaii like really one of the premier models, if not the premier model, for regenerative tourism. As you said, you want that lots of those funds not to go into general funds, but to go directly back to these places, right? And so we found ways to do this. We found ways to curb really unfettered tourism, congestion woes, and human impact. So in speaking of tourism, like I would like to understand, we would like to understand what the destination management approach to tourism is, and how would you and your administration balance catering to visitors while also being mindful of the needs of the community and the stress on our natural resources and environment.
Well, I think you just answered part of that in regards to, organizations like yours and the management that you guys are doing, as well as all of the other organizations. And I commend that, and I encourage that, and I support that 100%. And I think impact fees are something that we, for so long, have not, we haven't implemented. I don't even know if it was on the radar back, 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that's when it should have been done, because like I said, our trails and our beaches and whatnot are just they shouldn't be in the state that they're in, many of them. And it's taking the community to come together, which I knew it would, because we're all good stewards. And I keep saying that about us being good stewards, right? And as Hawaiians, as people who were born and raised here, and we understand what our Aiona is all about, what our ocean is all about, etc. We should be the best stewards that we can be. When it comes to tourism, though, and you say destination management, I don't, I'm learning about that also. I don't know what they mean by that. I really don't. I don't, my background. I'm an attorney by trade, but I've been a judge for 12 years. And so that's kind of my DNA when it comes to things of that nature. When I hear, we're going to limit this, or we want to restrict this, it always comes back to, now, is this legal or is this not legal? Or what are we going to, how can we do it if we can do it? And so when I heard that we want to limit tourism, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Now, this is something that has to be really discussed, because first and foremost, how would we limit tourism? Are we going to do it via, a moratorium on no further hotels being built? Are we going to do it by telling hotels, okay, you're only limited to 80% of your capacity? And do we do that for every single island that we have, right? Do we tell the airlines, okay, you guys can only bring in so much, per month or per year, whatever it might be. Those are questions that I think are fair questions to ask, but then it also has to be evaluated by whether or not it's legal, whether we can or cannot do that. But when it comes to, like they say, okay, we want to have destination management that is sensitive to our culture, then I think I kind of understand that. They want to look, they want to cater, they want to market towards tourists who are going to be sensitive to that, who want to get involved in regeneration of our forests, etc. Who want to learn a little bit more about about our reefs and everything else out there. And as such, those are the guys that we're going after. I think that's great, but I think it's also incumbent on us to make sure that we are, as a community, we are ready to accept that challenge and to make it happen. And I say make it happen, such as what you're doing, in your community, what others are doing in other parts of the of the state in regards to the trails and the roads and everything else that's coming down. Are we ready to do that and take on that responsibility? And if we are, then I'm all for it. Let's do it. But we have to be together as one. We can't do it piecemeal. Like, okay, on Kauai, we're doing it this way. On Maui, we kind of doing it that way. On Oahu, we gotta be, I guess, solidarity, right? It's gotta be together. So it can happen. We don't need a task force for this. We don't need a study for this. Okay, we got enough information. We got enough knowledge where we can just, through something like this, make it happen. So, and then we have a state agency, right? Supposedly HTA that is tasked with basically developing this. So, so I'm all for what we're talking about, Billy. And I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing. Thank you.
No, mahalo to you. I don't know if this is against the rules, but I want to bring it up anyway. So Dr. Green's he in what he said before, he's proposed a green fee to visitors, establishing a fee. Do you agree with that?
I don't know exactly what he's talking about. Is that like a not an impact fee, but like a tax? If you're a tourist coming into the state, you got to pay one tax right away. Again, my first question, is that legal? I don't know if that's legal. Okay, but let's say it is. The question then becomes, okay, how much is it going to be, right? And where is it going to go? Is it going to go into a general fund? Is it going to go, where is it going to go? Okay. And then third, and most importantly, what kind of impact will that have on tourism, I guess, the tourism industry? And, I would think that those questions would need to be asked. I'm not into politically showboating and just saying, hey, yeah, we're going to just tax the hell out of the tourists and we're going to, do everything else. Look, you probably have plenty of guys in your family and friends who work in the tourism industry. Right, you saw what happened when they shut down the hotels. A lot of our our kupuna, etc., and families and friends and everybody was affected by it. And so it's whether we like it or not, that is our industry, that is our economic hub. What we're doing right now is we're saying, how can we manage it better? And I think that's the key word, management. So those would be my questions that I would ask. So I wouldn't come out, blanket and say, yeah, let's do a green fee as he calls it, or let's just do a tax. Because if we're going to be imposing impact fees also, like how we're doing in some parts right now, and again, not uniformly, and I think that's one of the issues that I would say we need to work on. Again, the same questions, right? The legality of it, I think, most of it would probably be legal. But again, how much? Where's the money going? And what's the impact that we're having on our industry? And it's fair questions, right? I think those are fair questions. I don't think that's I got you type of questions. And it's not an advocacy type of question. It's just something that we need to walk through, right? In any decision-making process that we have, we got to walk through, all the steps and make sure that we've thought it through. And then when we implement something, we're doing it because it's thought out. And it's not something that's spur, on the moment or emotional or, like I said, political.
Mahalo again. So,
great question. Thank you for the question. I like that question.
Hey, Billy, breaking our rules, Billy.
That's what I do best.
Duke, it's 4 o'clock. I know you need to go. We have other questions piling up, but you need to jump off, or are you still?
I'll tell you what, is there a pressing question, one pressing question you guys have right now?
I think one has to do with the community-based subsistence fishing areas and sort of this long kind of what you heard Uʻi talk about.
Yeah.
The law was created in 1994, and
Yeah.
only now we're starting to approve those. And I think that ties into kind of Laʻa's question, and I'll add to his question for Molokai is, how will you manage if a noisy majority opposes the visionary efforts of a minority to ensure better management of our places?
Yeah. Again, that's leadership, right? That's being able to stand up to the noisy minority and doing what's right. So I'll be guided by those principles as to what's right. And again, the emphasis is on the community. So, you know, our fishing villages are local, right? They're all unique in where they're located. And to me, in law, when you have evidence, you go, okay, you know, you have what's called circumstantial evidence, and you have direct evidence. Direct evidence, they normally say, has the most weight. In other words, it has the most pull when it comes to deciding, you know, whether or not that happened or didn't happen. Circumstantial evidence is something that I'm here in my home, and I was asleep, and then I wake up the next morning and I look outside and I see that the ground is all wet. That's circumstantial evidence that it probably rained, because not just the lawn is wet, everything is wet, right? My car, my roof, everything. So it probably rained. Circumstantial evidence. So so you give the amount of weight that you think that is best to decide that fact. It's the same thing with this issue that you're talking about. It's a matter of weight. Where's the best weight in regards to this evidence? The noisy people, they're loud. Sometimes they might come up with a good argument, but what's the weight of that argument? How weighty is that as opposed to the people who are in the community, the people who have this direct link to what's going on? To me, that's how you decide where you're going to go. Standing up to people who oppose you and whatnot, that's part of what you do as as elected representative. You're going to have to do that because you have to listen to everybody. I believe that. You can't just be picking and choosing who you're going to listen to because you think they might have an adverse position that you have. And that's part of the problem I think we face right now as a society, not only here in Hawaii, but across the nation, is that, the activists, a lot of the activists are very loud and very, I'll just say it, uncivil in regards to their approach to issues that we have. And as a result of that, you have a lot of people who just don't want to say anything or do anything because they're afraid that if they do anything or say anything, they're going to be basically shouted down, called names, etc., etc. So I'm all about, what I just told you and how I will analyze things. So I hope that answers your question in regards to the I don't want to call them the squeaky wheel, but the loud wheel, right? That's out there. And
So
doing what's right.
So thanks. You actually interpreted my question wrong. I interpreted it right. I asked it wrong.
Oh, okay.
Maybe building on that, how would you deal with, because I know in politics and island life, we all kind of know each other. What are your thoughts on when there's legislative interference in your administrative processes? Because this has happened, and this is one reason why it's taken so long for communities to get rules passed when members of the legislature interfere in that process.
Yeah, I learned something when I was in office, and that's the power to convene. And as governor, I have that power to convene. And so I believe in discussion, right? I believe in, in us just talking it out without trying to use any leverage. And I also believe in community input. And so if that does happen, where we have legislators who are, intervening when they shouldn't be intervening, I would definitely have I guess you could say a meeting. I would convene the legislators because I would hope that they would respond to my requests to meet with the governor in my conference room. That legislator that is a part of that that intervention would be, you know, with me and the leadership within the legislature. We would discuss. That's the first phase, and then we bring the community in. You know, the people, the participants that are being affected by this, and then I listen to them, and then we bring them together. Hopefully, I can discern, I can mediate what is the issue here, and we can now come to a, I guess you could say, a conclusion or a compromise or a solution to what, you know, what's going on, without all the, you know, all of the hoopla and all of the, you know, the drama that goes on if you do it in public. This is not saying that we're not transparent. All I'm saying that this is something that, and we're not doing it behind closed doors. It'll be fully transparent, because everybody that's involved will be involved. And ultimately, we take, if it's a bigger group, we take it out to the bigger group. And, you know, we don't just leave it to the small group and to just that one legislator, because ultimately that's why you bring in leadership, right? So that you can get everybody involved in this, and so they know exactly where we're coming from. And that's how I would handle that. Now, you can say, well, you're in the opposite party. You're Republican and they're all Democrats. Well, you know, I don't see that as an impediment. In fact, I see that more of an advantage for me, because they need me, I need them. That's bottom line. Okay. But more importantly, they know that I am not going to be afraid to expose anything that is on, you know, that is not, one, that's not done right, that's not done, you know, transparently, and that's not done civilly, and that's done behind closed doors, like a lot of times it happens. So I would think that would be my advantage. I'm not going to threaten anybody, but they know that that's exactly what can happen. And so I would assume that they would want to work with me in regards to things of this nature. And lastly, what's most important is all of you. I mean, you're the power. You're the power. And you know, a lot of times it takes somebody like the governor to say, hey, Representative so-and-so, do you understand how many people are in support of this? And it's not for votes. It's just for, you know, to support what they are advocating. And they need a voice, and I'm going to be their voice. I think that says a lot. I think that says a lot. And that's how you can address those types of those confrontations, or whatever you want to call those little glitches that you might have. I get one more. Maybe I go to 410. It's 407 right now.
Let me pull another up then. This is the same, dealing with the community-based subsistence fishing areas. The community of Kipuhulu has been working towards CBSFA for the past 10 years, together with the DLNR and other partners. If the proposed CBSFA is approved by the DLNR, the CBSFA would land on the governor's desk for signature in early 2023. Would you be in support of this kind of designation? Or if it is unfamiliar to you, how would we be able to provide you more information?
Yeah, it is unfamiliar. I got to get educated, no doubt about it. And that'd be first and foremost. If it's coming to my desk in 2023, right upon election, you guys got to be coming, and we got to be talking. I got to get more educated on all the divisions that we have. Obviously, I mean, that shouldn't take me long. It's a matter of probably refreshing my memory in regards to the structure of DLNR, but more importantly, what's out there in the community. In 8 years, you guys have proliferated so many more community organizations, which I think is tremendous. Like I said, I'm so proud of you guys. I encourage you to do that. I want you guys to. We need this. This is what we need. I hope you guys can keep that passion and that energy going, because this is what drives us as a community, right? And so I would have to get educated on that, no doubt about it. And I would assume you would not be hesitant, nor would you be shy, nor would you be afraid to come and educate me. And my door would be open to all of you. Put it this way: you don't have to be a union to have access to my office, okay? You don't need to be a union. You guys get access, okay? Guaranteed.
Thank you, Duke, for your candor and for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and wish you luck in, I think it's November 8th.
Yes, sir. It is. Thank you all again for allowing me this opportunity to get a little more educated and up to speed on what's happening with all of you. So all I can say again, continue to do what you're doing. God bless you all, and ahui ho.
Aloha, ahui ho.